Mr. Kip Sorensen, it's good to be with you, man. I didn't think I'd be here this week, but we cut our trip short in light of the madness that is the coronavirus.
You guys cut it short because you're afraid that they were going to stop travel.
Actually, yeah. Well, into Boston, because Boston's been hit pretty hard, and that's typically where we fly out of. So I've got a good friend, Pete Roberts. You know Pete, and he's like, dude, you got to get home, and he's like sending me all these texts, like freaking me out. And I'm like, yeah, we kind of probably do need to get home. So we're flying home, and we land in Boston, and we had like just got word that they were shutting down all of the restaurants in Boston. So we're like, dang, this is getting serious. So we landed, grabbed our gear, went to the bathroom, and got out of there. We got home at like 2 a.m., but I just wanted to get home and be here, obviously.
Yeah. This is where I thought about it last night because I looked up there's an active map that shows cases, fatalities, and Maine has like 2 people, the entire state. And then I even look at Utah, and like small town Utah, where I was born and raised, is like non-existent, right? Like this is only like kind of a city problem.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's just and the proximity to other people for sure.
Yeah. And I kind of thought about that a little bit. I thought, it's probably a good time to be living in a small town. You're like, yeah, this really doesn't affect us.
Yeah. Well, where we've been traveling, I figured the responsible thing to do would be to self-quarantine for a couple of weeks. So we're holed up here in our house, and fortunately we've got our provisions and we're all taken care of, but yeah, that's what we're at.
It's crazy.
So here I am, able to record with you this week, man.
I know. Good thing we don't do these in person.
Yeah. Well, we could have last week in between our jiu-jitsu sessions. So
yeah.
Well, did your gym close, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and it's funny. Yeah. A lot of jiu-jitsu schools are now closed, right? So and we did the same thing yesterday. Utah County, all restaurants deliver only or pick up.
Yeah.
Right. No dining. Yeah. So it's certainly getting odd. What's cool about this though, is this podcast not affected. The Iron Council, not affected. The Facebook group, not affected. I mean, this is one of those things where, hey, guess what? It's business as usual in the world of Order of Man and Iron Council.
That's right.
So nothing's going to prevent us from becoming better in the meantime.
That's right. Absolutely. We're good to go. All right. Should we get into the questions for today?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
So we are fielding our questions from our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/group/Order of Man. To join us there, hop on Facebook and join the conversation and have the opportunity to submit your questions in the future for future AMA episodes of the podcast.
That's right.
All right. I have no idea.
I'm like, what's the problem?
I'm like, I don't know. That's what this dude's name.
Alphabet.
Which do you think is more of a priority, getting out of debt or getting an early start on investing?
Well, there's a lot of variables with this. I would say getting out of debt is generally a pretty good thing to do. I mean, there's exceptions, of course, if you look at interest rates and what kind of debt it is, whether it's a business or even a home. For example, I would save and invest before I would pay off my house. So that's a situation where it would be better to invest and save and build up an investment portfolio. And by the way, now's a great time to invest in the stock market. Everybody's freaked out. Now's a great time to invest in the stock market. So consider that as well. But if you're talking about consumer debt, debt that like a car payment or medical bills, personal loans, credit cards, debt with higher interest rates, typically it's best to pay those things off first. I actually do like Dave Ramsey's approach where he says, build up $1,000, I think, as his emergency fund, and then just get hyper aggressive on the debt. And then from there, move into investments and savings. So I tend to lean more towards that, with the exception of a mortgage payment and low interest debt, maybe even some business debt. So it really depends on what you're talking about specifically. But again, consumer debt, get that stuff hammered off as quickly as you possibly can. And then max out your savings and investment strategies from there. That's generally what I would say. Obviously, it's on a case-by-case basis. For paying off debt, I would use the snowball method, which again, I think is coined by Dave Ramsey. Pay off the lowest debt balance first. A lot of people say highest interest rate or highest card pay. No, lowest balance first. And then you apply all of your discretionary income towards that lowest balance. And then you move to the next lowest balance and use let's say you pay off a a $5,000 credit card. Now you were paying, I don't know, 150 a month on that. Now take that 150 plus your discretionary income. Let's say it was another 150 that you were applying extra. So now you have $300. Now you apply it to the next lowest debt balance, which let's just assume it's a car payment. You got $10,000 on that thing. You get that paid off. Now you got 150 from the credit card you paid off earlier, 150 discretionary income. So there's 300, $500 car payment. So now you have $800. Now you apply that to the next thing. Right. That's the snowball in a nutshell, how that works. So
why does Dave Ramsey choose 1,000? Why 1,000 for emergency? Is there some science behind that based on the size of family or?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I actually don't know his specific reason for doing that. But I would assume because those little things, those little ticky-tack things, which I would consider under $1,000, whether that's a medical deductible or the water heater goes out or you need to replace something on the car. Those things happen more often than like the $5,000 and the $10,000 things. So I assume that's why. I don't know for sure, but that's my suggestion.
For your cigs, in case
that's right.
So you can at least keep your addiction towards smoking.
That's right. In the zombie apocalypse, you can like we're dealing with now, you can load up and on your cigarettes and everything else. Or ammunition and food. That might be a better choice, but whatever.
That's a good point. At one point in our emergency preparedness, I actually thought about buying crates of cigarettes for like exchange.
Oh, for bartering?
As a currency, yeah.
Yeah, man.
But then I thought, I have teenage kids. There's no way. I'm sure I'd go down there and like they're missing. I'm like, what the crap?
Yeah, do that. Do alcohol, like all these things. Yeah, I would actually suggest like having cash on hand, like in small bills,
bills,
ones, fives, tens, 20s, and just having cash on hand. Yeah. If things get really bad, and I don't think they will in this situation, but if things get bad, you think you're going to be able to access your money at the bank?
Oh no.
No. It's all ones and zeros.
They're going to be like the grocery store.
Yep.
Empty.
Yeah. Yep. So have some cash on hand.
Copy. All right, Calvin Kashuba. How do you deal with a boss that feels threatened by your work ethic and ambitions to want to grow and learn as much as possible?
Help him win. He won't be threatened if you lift him up, if you prop him up.
Yeah.
Like he'll actually consider you an asset, right? So if you're undermining him, look, maybe he has a right to be threatened because maybe he's a lousy boss. That could be true. And so of course he would feel threatened about that, but let him know it's okay. Right? That your job is to put him at ease by lifting him up, by propping him up, by him making you an ally. And that's by you not brown nosing and sucking up, but just doing your job and letting him get some of the recognition for that, right? And because here's what's going to happen. He's going to leave, he's going to move on, or other people are going to see, oh no, it's not Al, it's John, right? Or what was his name?
Calvin.
It's Calvin who's doing this. And they're going to see that. People are going to recognize that over time. And also you're going to give yourself other opportunities that might not exist in this current employment. It might exist somewhere else. And you've spent all your time building up your ability to perform and your skill sets so that you can go out into another environment and do very well. So there's a lot of benefits that come from helping your boss win in this case. And if you undermine him and you make him feel stupid and you try to outshine him, you're really just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. And a lot of long-term benefit, everything from established relationships where this guy might, you never know, 5 years from now, you killed it for him. He brings you on as, an executive of another company. Like the possibilities of, I was just telling my son this, the possibilities of just working hard and doing an amazing job and helping others present opportunities consistently, always.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
All right. Lyle Miller, how to work through infidelity on the wife's part. How do you know that you should work through it or call it quits?
Brother, I feel for you, man.
Next question.
No, I know this is a really tough one because I know that there's guys listening right now who are like screaming through their radios, like, leave her, like she'll I get it. I totally understand. It's hard for me to say like, oh, just do this, right? Like there's so much that goes into this. Is she sorrowful? Does she have remorse? Does she have a desire to fix the behavior? What is your feeling? Like, do you feel like you can forgive? Do you feel like you can ever trust again? And that's going to be hard now, of course. That'll work itself out over time a little bit. But man, there are just so many variables to this. I would just say trust your gut. Like use your instinct, not emotion so much, but like be logical about this. Use emotion as a metric, as something to consider, not the only thing, right? Because you're of course hurt and upset and probably angry, so you got to use some of that, but not only emotion. And this is going to take a lot of conversations, certainly a lot of trust if you decide to move forward. Is this a one-time thing? Has this happened before? If this is a trend, like I would probably lean more towards, hey, this is a trend. This continues to happen, and so I'm out, right? If this is a one-time thing in the I actually understand, and I'm not condoning this behavior. I understand completely how a quick one-night stand or a little mess up could happen. I completely get it. And I'm not excusing that behavior. I'm not saying it's okay. I just understand how it could possibly happen. Yeah. So you got to take all those into consideration. Man, I wish I could give you a better answer than this. I can't. I don't know. Kip, what do you have? You have anything?
The only things that cross my mind is whether you choose to accept her or stay together or not, look for the opportunity to learn from the situation. What part did you play in this? And I know that's even a hard message. Hey, guess what, dude? She cheated on you. Figure out what you did wrong, right? But that is what I'm saying. There is an opportune time for you to look at the situation and say, okay, what part did I play? Where could I have become a better husband or whatever? Not that justifies her behavior. So I think there's power in that. And then I also think there's power in kind of psychoanalyzing her a little bit to understand where this came from and how this came to be. And that's going to help you be able to deal with if it's a good decision to stay with her or not, is kind of understanding how this got started. Because your emotions by default are going to immediately go to the space of, I'm not good enough, she doesn't love me, she's a bitch, and it's going to be all the extremes. When in reality, she could actually love you. And, some of those aren't accurate, those emotions that immediately come to us. And so I think understanding her perspective might provide some insight that will allow you to make that decision better.
Yeah, I agree. I would even say, even if you don't decide to work it out, there are still learning opportunities here for future relationships that you have. And look, I get it, guys. Those of you who right now are listening to this and like, what the hell is Ryan and Kip talking about? Like, how could this be my fault? She's the one who did it. Guys, look, we understand what you're saying. We get it. And we're not condoning that behavior. We're not taking the fault for something that isn't ours to take. We're not being betas or cucks or anything like that. All right. That's going to be a knee-jerk reaction of a lot of you listening. All we're saying is that there's a circumstance that happened. Now, how can you make yourself better because of it? Does that excuse her behavior? Of course not. Does it mean that she's not a bitch? No, of course not. It just means that there's some opportunities here to learn, to expand, to grow, and to make yourself better in spite of somebody else messing up, like really undermining your relationship, your trust, and being out of integrity with themselves. That's separate from what can we do to improve ourselves as men, as fathers, husbands, the kind of men that we want to show up as. Yeah. The other thing I would say, Kip, and then I know you've got something else you want to share here, is I'm just trying to think about, like, in my circumstance, if this happened, and it hasn't, but if this happened, how would I handle this? If I decided that I wanted to stay with my wife, there would be some hurdles that would need to be in place. So the first thing, plan established. Yeah. And the first thing would be, well, does she want to? Right? Because it would actually be really convenient for her to stay with me, but have a little side piece over here, right? That'd be really convenient because I'm stable. How committed is she? Yeah. Right, because I've got the income, we've got the home and the kids, and so there's a lot of convenience here, and then she's over here doing her thing. That's not going to fly. That's one of my boundaries. Another thing that I would put in place is she's going to have to go to therapy. That would be a thing that she would just have to do. She would have to go see somebody to work through some of these issues, and ultimately I would hope that we would do that together. But if she's not willing to see somebody to work through some of this and to talk through some of this, I got to say, that's a huge red flag. Like, she's not real concerned in improving. So I would put some things in place and have these conversations and say, look, if you want to stay together, here are my expectations. Here are my requirements. And if you can meet these requirements and work towards these things, then here's what I will do. Like, I'm going to work on this too. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're just showing me that you're not interested. And that's your decision. That's not my decision. It's your decision that you're no longer interested in this relationship, which is going to be so hard to swallow, but it's way better than just blindfolding yourself and assuming that she just wants to get better because she said she did.
Yeah. It's tough. I already forgot what I was going to say, but I like
brutal,
what
man.
You're saying.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's a rough situation. So protect yourself.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to kind of what you're alluding to earlier. And it's no different than this coronavirus. It's any circumstance in life that is difficult, that is outside of your control, you still have two choices. You can let it define you and adjust you and make you more negative, or you can take that situation and make it something to make you better. Period. Doesn't matter if it's a cheating wife. It doesn't matter if it's you getting fired from your job. All of those scenarios, there's an opportunity for you to level up and make that situation the best thing that's ever happened to you. I honestly believe that. That's a choice.
Yeah, agreed. It's so funny that people interpret that as like, oh, you're just taking all the blame and you're being a little bitch. It's like, that's not.
It's because it's egos.
That's not what. Right. If anything, it's humility. It's improving. It's getting better. It's becoming more capable. Becoming stronger. This is how we grow. Yeah. We accept responsibility in all situations, even the ones, especially the ones that are outside of our control.
Totally. And how awesome is that? Right. I've been divorced. And that divorce could have been the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And it could have been like a horrible, but guess what? It's not. And it's very awkward to be able to say it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I don't even condone divorces. In fact, I don't even think I should have gotten a divorce. I don't think it was justified. I don't think we should have done it, but it's the best thing that's ever happened. Why? Because I chose to grow from it. Because I allowed it the opportunity to present itself for me to learn and become a better man.
Right. I would actually say the same thing about my wife and our separation.
Yeah, you would never condone that on someone. You wouldn't want that to happen. But guess what? You don't mind it. Why? Because you became better.
I mean, we wouldn't have this podcast if it weren't for that, right? We wouldn't be doing what we're doing now if it weren't for the separation with my wife.
Totally.
Now, there wasn't any infidelity on either of our part. I just want to be clear on that. But there was some areas that both of us needed to improve, and we did independently and collectively. So,
yeah.
All right.
Scott, Dorian, Adamson, mostly parenting item here. Father roles that have to be modified into some mother roles after your wife dies. How does a dad balance maternal and paternal ways and means in approach to kindness, nurturing, and tough structure, even when you're gone to work 10 hours a day? Also, the changes in how you manage new changes in the house with adult kids. Maybe these are good questions. It's my daily challenge.
First of all, I'm sorry for the loss of your wife, your kids' mother. I'm assuming that's the situation here.
Yeah.
And man, I can't imagine. I've thought about that. Like, what would happen if my wife died? Or I thought about what would happen if I died. Like, how would she handle that? I've thought about those things, but man, to be able to have to live through that I can't imagine. I met a guy this weekend who his wife passed away about 8 months ago from cancer, her second time dealing with cancer. He's got five daughters, I believe, at home. And so like, I feel for you.
5 daughters.
Yeah. I feel for him. I feel for you asking this question. I've just never been in this situation, but the thing that I thought about is make sure that they're still getting that feminine presence, because there's certain things that you can't do as a man, just like a woman. There's certain things that a woman, my mother, for example, she raised my sister and I primarily on her own. And she always knew, like, she did the best job she could, and she did a wonderful job. Incredible. I look back at it now and think, how in the world did this woman do this? And millions of women have done it. And millions of men have done it. So that should give you hope too. But the one thing with my mother that she always recognized is she knew that I needed to get around other men. And so she got me involved in Boy Scouts. She got me involved in competitive sports. And then eventually I went on to the military. So there was a lot of male presence, masculinity in my life in the absence of a permanent father figure at home. And so I think just by you asking this question, you're being very aware of the nurturing and the love and the compassion that generally women are able to offer in greater quantities, I believe, than men, right? But you need to get your kids around other feminine presences. That could be your mother or her mother. Maybe you have some siblings, a sister, but you need to get them around, especially the girls. I've seen studies that suggest that the same sex parent is the most important person in a young child's life, the same sex parent. So girl's mother, boy's father. Not to diminish the role of the other, but that's really important. So the only advice and suggestion I can give you is make sure there's still a feminine presence. I'm not saying date and bring women to the house. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if there's a mother or a sister or an aunt that you can have spend some time with you guys, you can go out and do things together, even if it's just going to the park. Try to get those women involved, and they're going to get that. And then the fact, again, that you're asking this question tells me that you're probably aware of it, and you're naturally stepping into some of the nurturing and compassion and love that, again, I think women generally offer in greater doses.
Yeah, totally. I think the structure is super important. You're going to get that naturally on your own just because you're going to have to do it. Mm-hmm. And guys have a tendency to be a little bit better at the structure side, or at least it seems that way in my marriage. But I think those opportune times for your daughters to be around other females, if you just get a little creative, because I'm just thinking through this in my mind right now. If my wife passed, what would I do? And what I would do is any little girl that are friends with my daughters in gymnastics, for instance, I would grab their mom after gymnastics and say, hey, would you mind if Kika and Kwani came over for like a little tea party with your daughter at your place? Or you could generate those scenarios. You just might need to get a little bit creative. And those women want to. They're going to naturally, if they know your circumstance and your situation, you're going to have, it's going to be very easy for you to ask women that you respect to be able to be involved in your daughter's life. I know without a doubt right now, I could spin off a huge list of women that are our family friends that would be more than willing.
Binders full of women.
Yeah. I know all these women. That's not what I intended. But I know them, right? And they would all step up in a second. But you might have to ask. Or take some initiative.
Yeah, you have to take some initiative. It would be the same. I think about it from this context. If I knew a single mother, let's say her son was on a baseball team or a jiu-jitsu, and she asked me, said, hey, my son, can my son come over and play with you guys? Like, are you, if you like going to play baseball or going to the park or whatever, can my son play with your son and you guys? I would be more than happy to do that. Totally. Any rational human being would completely understand the circumstance and be more than happy to step into that role. No doubt in my mind. So it might be a little nervous asking. You might feel like, oh, am I being too forward, like inviting my kid to go play with? It's the situation. It is what it is. And people are more than happy to step up and help that way.
Yeah. Read the shirt. Read the t-shirt. No, be unreasonable. Right. Even with your requests to people, like do what's best for your kids. And sometimes that seems unreasonable. Do it anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Wim Hoke. Have you heard Bjorn Bull Hansen? And if yes, what are your thoughts?
I don't know who that is. Is it just pronounced as Bjorn? Bjorn, I think. Bjorn. Hold on, let me see. Bull Hansen?
The question is Ryan Googling? Or he's binging.
I do know who this is.
You're Yahooing.
I was. What are the?
Ask Jeeves.
Yes, Ask Jeeves. I do know who this is actually, because I follow. Yeah, I do. I didn't know what his name was right offhand. Yeah, I follow him on YouTube, and I'm not like way familiar with him, but I actually want to have him on the podcast because he's got some very, very interesting thoughts about masculinity and manliness, and he's got a great YouTube channel. So, yeah, I am familiar with him. And
what are your thoughts on him?
I don't know him way too good, but I've just. Like I said, I've been following on YouTube, and I like what the guy has to say about manliness and masculinity.
It's kind of looks like a The dude living up in the mountains.
He does.
Dude.
Yeah, he does these like YouTube videos where he's just sitting around his campfire and like cooking coffee or whatever he's doing and talking about life. It's actually really good. It's really insightful. So I need to reach out to him. I'm going to make a note to reach out to him, see if I can get him on the podcast.
Yeah. Or Wim, if you have some connections.
Yeah, if you know
reach
who
out to Mr.
Sure.
Minkler.
Yep.
All right. Stephen Juvenali. Man, I'm slaughtering names, guys. I'm sorry. All right, moving on. I'm nearing the end of a development program at work, 3 to 8 month rotation, learning about business. And I'm beginning to look at entry-level jobs within the company. They encourage changing jobs approximately every 3 years to get different experiences and move up. Would you say the team or the boss or job itself is more important at this early stage? Thank you both for what you do. So what's more important, the boss or the position?
I don't really understand why you'd ask this question, because I mean, you're going to focus on both. I mean, both are important, and I don't think one needs to come at the expense of the other. Like, I think it's very important that you learn your skill set with the job specifically and the team, and then you do the best job that you can. And I think it's also important. Look, if you're focusing on the boss, I gotta say you're probably thinking about brown nosing a little bit. Like, you don't need to focus on the boss. You just need to do a good job, right? And some of that is going to include having the boss involved. He's going to give you direction and an instruction. You're probably going to report back to him or her and explain what you've done and how you're progressing. So some of that is naturally going to take care of itself. But if you place the focus on the boss, that's weird to me. Like, why are you doing that? Like, focus on your job, learn from this individual, learn from your team leaders, develop new skill sets, push yourself even outside of your work so that you can be better at work. And the boss stuff, I feel like, will take care of itself. Like, I really do. I think thinking about this, talking through it, the emphasis should be placed on the job, not the boss. And the boss is part of the job.
Yeah, totally.
If I'm understanding the question right, it's kind of an interesting question. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, I was like, oh, well, is there opportunities in life where when you get connected to the right people, right? And I'm, I'm one of your employees, and because of our strong relationship and where I establish myself, when you move up, it affects me, and opportunities present themselves probably more because of our established relationship. But you might have an amazing boss that's stuck, managing a call center team, and he's going nowhere, but he's a great boss, and it doesn't mean that opportunities will present themselves for you because of who he is. Right? Well, he may not even be able to promote you. So,
yeah, I think you ought to just be good with everyone, the boss and your upline and your peers, and even those who you might train at some point. Like, you just ought to be good with everyone. Look, networking is an invaluable skill. Your ability to connect with high performers is critical. I've been able to do that fairly well. And I'm not going to shy away from saying that. Like, I've been pretty good at networking with powerful, successful people. We wouldn't have this podcast if that wasn't the case. And every time I've learned how to network and connect and build relationships and add value, which I did a podcast several weeks ago on this subject, the power of networking and how to help other people win. I think I did a Friday Field Notes 2 or 3 weeks ago on it. When I implement those strategies that I share, I win. And so does that other individual, by the way. That's the beauty. Yeah. It's like, this is a win-win relationship. So yeah, I wouldn't place too much emphasis on like, how do I brown nose and win over the boss? Because it's going to become annoying. I would just be a great networker and then do your job really well.
Yeah. And help other people always.
Of course.
Yeah. I just have a great example of this. Just this past month, we had a general employee for an existing client ended up leaving that company, and got a call from him just like a couple weeks ago. He moved back east, and now he's in a leadership position in New York. And he's like, hey, let's bring you guys in to, to bid on some work. It's like, good thing I paid attention to that relationship.
Yeah.
He wasn't in a position to quote unquote provide me value in the past, but we provided him value nonetheless. And now he's in a position to be able to, consume or purchase our services. Like,
right.
Just things happen.
Yeah. By the way, I would also say, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago on that podcast I'm referring to. I'll have to look that up here in a second when you're asking the next question or whatever. But Jordan Harbinger has some great information on networking and social capital. I think he has a free course on his site.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. So if you go to jordanharbinger.com, I don't know for sure, but you can find it, jordanharbinger.com, and then you can take his social course or whatever it's called.
I'm going to remember it by the time this episode's over.
Yeah.
What he has.
He's been a good friend of mine, and I've learned a lot about networking and relationship building and using social capital, developing and building social capital, tapping into it at some point, which he has. Like when he left his previous podcast, he called me and tapped into his social capital with me and said, "Hey man, I'm starting this new thing. I need your help. Can I come on your podcast?" I said, "Absolutely." Right. So he knows how to use it. He knows how to build it and grow it. It's pretty powerful stuff. So definitely check it out.
Yeah. Okay. Jacob Kors, being military and moving every 2 to 3 years, what do you suggest as a good amount of emergency food supply storage that I would be able to restock every few years?
Well, I think having a 12-month supply is ideal. I think we should all build towards having 12 months of food storage. That said, I know it's difficult. So I would say 3 to 6 months is probably an average, like a C, I would say. I mean, if you had 3 to 6 months, I'd give you a C. If you had 9 months, I'd give you a B. If you had 12 months, I'd give you an A, if I had to grade it. Anything below 3 months, you're in the red zone, like you're failing, right? So build that up. And look, you don't have to do it all at once. I get it. I'm not telling you to go spend $2, $3, $4 grand all at once to get everything. You can't now anyways, because the grocery stores don't have everything. But spread it out. You know, every time you go to the grocery store, spend an extra whatever's in your budget. Maybe it's $20 and maybe it's $100. I don't know, whatever your budget is. But just buy non-perishable items every time you go. Spend an extra, 10% or 20% of your grocery bill on building up that food storage and buying batteries and headlamps and flashlights and blankets. And as it warms up, a lot of the snow clothes are starting to go on sale. So buy up some warm clothes, just like every time. Just spend 10, 15, 20, $100 and you'll be there before you know it.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on dry pack, using dry pack food storage versus, cans and whatnot?
I think it's great. I think you should have that. I have MREs is something that we have. Quite a few of them. And then we have like dehydrated meals, which is what you're talking about, right?
Like Mountain House.
Yeah, Mountain House. Yep. That's what we have, in fact, is the Mountain House meals. Yeah, I think those are great. I don't think it should be the only thing that you have, right? You want to diversify within your food storage as well. So yeah, have it all. Absolutely.
Cool. All right, Chris Johnson.
One thing, Kip, I will say about the dry pack stuff is it's very light, which is valuable. So it's a great thing to throw in packs because it's super light. I don't know. I'm sure you could eat it without. I don't know if you'd eat it without water. Do you know on that?
You could.
I guess you could if you had to.
Yeah,
so you definitely want to think about a filtration system, right? Because if it's, you can eat them cold, it wouldn't be good, but you can eat it cold. But just make sure you have some sort of filtration system at your disposal as well. It's very important.
Yeah. Some of them, like there's granola and a few other things that require no water, but most of them require some form of water.
They're just good because they're light. So you're not carrying around cans and like meat, and it's like super light.
Totally. Well, it's after Katrina. We changed our food storage after that scenario because I sat back and thought, an entire basement full of food storage and cans underwater. Yeah. And you need to get up and go. That was not beneficial whatsoever to all of those people. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? We're switching a great deal of our food storage to dry pack so we can pack, go if I need to. And I love backpacking. So whenever we want to go backpacking, I just go downstairs,
just grab one and good to go.
Grab a couple packs, throw them in the back, and we're good to go. So.
If you do that, just make sure, and I know you are, but I'm just saying, like, make sure you're constantly replenishing your food storage.
Yeah.
Because so my wife and I, this was years ago, we went through a very difficult financial time. Like we were having a hard time. I think it was when I started my financial planning practice. And we ate a lot of stuff from our food storage during that time. A lot of stuff. And so when we got back on our feet and financially we were more stable, we looked at it and we're like, how's all of our food storage gone? It's because we ate it all when we were broke. So make sure if you're using it that you're also replenishing it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And it is good to use it occasionally, by the way. Like, you should be using it because it's going to spoil. So use it and then replace it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you get new canned beans or whatever, like go downstairs, put those in storage, and then grab the ones
That's right.
that have best use between 1990 or something.
Within the last 20 years, you know, as long as it's like 10 to 20 years, you should be safe. You get more than 20, you're in trouble.
Popped, you're
That's
good
right.
To go. Yeah.
That's right.
No, by the way, this is not, don't get sick and then blame us because you ate some can of beans that expired 20 years ago.
And if you're going to blame somebody, blame Kip because he said it, not me.
Oh, you're fine. It's good for your immune system.
See, you keep saying it. So now you know exactly who to blame.
All right. Chris Johnson, he has a question about your beard, man.
Yeah.
It's one of those questions.
All right, let's hear it.
I've been waiting for an AMA just for this question.
All right, it better be good.
Are we all ready?
Is it Chris? It better be good.
Yeah. Okay. Why do you have a beard? ? In previous AMAs, you've stated that it gets in your way during jiu-jitsu at times. I remember Jocko jokingly asking when you were going to shave. You didn't have any input on its impact in swimming because you don't swim laps. I'm sure it generates some drag, though, regardless.
Of course.
But it seems that the beard offers little practical advantage, but curious to see what thought process is behind having it.
I think you're reading way too much into it because I haven't.
Maybe there's a magical force behind the beard, Chris. Don't you know? We brought this up multiple times, right? It defends him. It prevents what else does it prevent? Reduces chokes on the mat.
Prevents looking like a woman. There's all kinds of things it prevents. Why do I have a beard? You know, I don't know. I'll tell you why. Like, so 5 years ago, roughly, somebody had challenged me to grow the yeard, which is grow a beard for a year without trimming it or cutting it. So I grew a yeard.
Never heard of this before.
It's the yeard. Yeah.
Huh.
So I grew a yeard, and from there, I liked it. I liked having it. I liked the way that it looked. I liked that people would talk to me about it as a great like icebreaker. People would say things, you know, and we'd talk about it. So I just liked having it. I don't know when
and the wife likes it.
She likes it.
So it's like, you know, all choices are starting to go out the window. Right?
Exactly. Look, men have facial hair for a reason. Like, do I know what it is? No, not entirely. But there's a lot of research about it. There's a great book called, I'm drawing a blank now. It's called Of Beards and Men.
Beards and Men.
Funny. And it talks about historically why men have grown beards, what historical figures have grown beards, when that changed. Like Alexander the Great didn't have a beard, and so it changed a lot of the culture, and so people started shaving. But up until that, men had beards historically. So there's like a lot of history about it. It's just really interesting to me. I know a lot of people are like, really? That's interesting. Yeah, it is. It's interesting. I don't know when he asked this question, but I have trimmed about 5 inches off of my beard.
Yeah.
For jiu-jitsu reasons.
Yeah, to allow his neck to be a little bit more exposed.
I just want to make it harder on myself because it's just been too easy. You know, it's like
I never get choked.
I know. This is so
my neck
easy.
More.
Like, what are guys complaining about? Jiu-jitsu being hard and stuff. So like, I made it harder on myself, and now I kind of get that it's maybe a little hard, but I still don't know what these guys are complaining about. By the way, we had a good roll the other day.
Yeah, we did.
That was good, man. Until you put me in the Darce choke, and I knew it was coming, and I still fell prey to it. I know. It got tight quick. I was trying to hold on, thinking, okay, maybe he'll let go. I'm like, he's not letting go. He's not letting go. All right, I'm out. Yeah, so I just like it. I just like it. That's it. There's no real reason. At this point, it's way more manageable, and I like it better shorter. I gotta say, I do like it better shorter. It doesn't get in the way. It's more manageable. I just like having the beard.
Well, and you've to be frank, I mean, you are a brand.
That's true as well.
And
that's true as well.
You've kind of created a brand around that beard.
That is true.
It would be a little difficult, to go too short.
Yeah. I've seen articles. The CDC recommends shaving your beard to avoid coronavirus. I'm like, no, that's dumb. If anything, I believe that, and I don't know if this is well documented or not, but if anything, I think that the beard is a filtration system. Like it is. Think about it. It's literally protecting your nose and mouth. Like literally, look.
Yeah.
This is a natural filtration system. So,
in fact, Ryan doesn't even use water filtration systems when he goes backpacking. He just dips the beard and drinks.
That's right. And just let the water filter through the little fibers in the beard, and I'm good to go. You can do all kinds of stuff. I know there's toilet paper problems. Like, you could do all kinds of stuff.
If he's like needs an emergency rope, he could cut it and weave his own rope
together
and then save his family with it. I mean,
when I cut my beard, somebody's like, "You should do locks of love." I'm like, "Oh, like, could you imagine somebody having this? Like, nobody would want this on their head."
It's like, I'm not going to say it. That's funny.
No,
what you should do is you should make the who's the author that you had on about the 100 survival skills.
Clint Emerson.
Yeah,
you and
Clint should do like a beard survival book.
That would be
all
good.
the
I'm going to shoot him a message.
It'd be super fun.
I'm going to shoot him a message.
Yeah. By the way, I made a mistake of having that book laid around too much. It was a couple of years ago, and my 6-year-old son's like reading, and I'm like, "Oh, nice! Like, that's a cool book." And then like shortly after, he's like, "Did you know I can hide weapons in my butt?"
In my butt? Yes.
Yeah, I'm like,
of course, that's the one thing he saw.
I know. Totally.
Like, there's 2 pages in that entire book on that, and he, of course, found that.
Totally. I'm like, do not try that. That's not a good idea unless it's an emergency. Yeah.
Yes. That's funny. All right,
let's like figure out how to make a shank and hide weapons.
Perfect.
All right.
Clint would be proud.
Totally. Brady Gambling. Have you read The Barefoot Investor by Scott Pape? If so, what are your thoughts?
I haven't read it.
Okay. There you go.
I don't have any thoughts. I haven't read it. Like, hey, look, we got to be truthful, right? Like, I could BS you and say, "Oh yeah, it's a great book," and teach that. I don't know. I haven't read it.
Yeah.
There's other good books that I've read, but that isn't one of them.
Yeah. It's really surprising for Ryan to say he hasn't read that book
in
particular, because usually he's covered them all. But
hey, by the way, I will say, if you're not following along on Instagram, then head over to Instagram at Ryan Mickler. And is yours at Kip Sorensen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so head over to more mine than Kip's, but
he's trying to maintain a ratio.
That's right.
He's like, as long as I have 100,000 followers than Kip, then I'm good.
The reason I'm telling you to head over to Instagram is because I just posted yesterday, as of the release of this podcast, 8 books that I've read over the last little bit, and I think I've got them actually sitting right here.
Over the last 6 months or what?
Yeah, I would say
you've done this list before. So this is a newer list.
No.
Just a recent list.
Yeah, let me just tell you what they are. So, Wild at Heart by John Eldridge, Atomic Habits by James Clear. There it is, right there. Yep. Iron John by Robert Bly, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, Savage Son by Jack Carr, which doesn't come out, I believe, until beginning or mid-April. So you have to do a pre-order on that one. Endurance, which is actually one of my all-time favorite books and not really well known. It's about Ernest Shackleton's horrific trip across the Antarctic, which is really good, by Alfred Lansing. Leadership Strategy and Tactics by Jocko Willink, who I've had on the podcast to talk about it. And then The Road, which is actually pretty timely now, by Cormac McCarthy.
What's The Road about?
It's about an apocalypse and a father and a son trying to survive in that time. It's really good.
Nice.
I've had
book.
Fictional. Yep. I've had.
And Savage Son is as well.
Savage Son is fictional. And then Wild. Well, yeah, those are the 2 fictionals. Yeah. But I've had John Eldridge, Wild at Heart, on the podcast. I've had James Clear, Atomic Habits, on the podcast. I've had Jack Carr, Savage Son, on the podcast. And I've had Jocko Willink, Leadership Strategy and Tactics, on the podcast. So you can supplement all of those with the podcast as well. But those are 8 good books. I know a lot of people have some downtime right now, so read, do stuff that's going to be productive for you instead of just sitting around watching Netflix and eating chips. Which, hey, I'm a fan of that too occasionally, but just make sure you're doing other stuff as well. That's
also the other reason why he trimmed the beard, right? His chip input was being reduced.
No, actually, when chips fall out of my mouth, I can keep them in the beard and then snack on them later.
Find them.
Yeah.
Peter Buchanan, how to manage the transition from team member to team leader at work. Also, how to manage the change in relationships for coworkers and subordinates. This is a great question.
It is good. I would actually say to go back to the book, Leadership Strategy and Tactics. If you haven't read it, then you should definitely read that, because inside of the way that book is laid out, he goes through and he answers, Jocko answers questions like this, like, hey, how do I manage relationships when I transition from team leader to team member to team leader? And he'll go through and I'll actually write that out and document how you should do that. So it's a very good book for transitioning into leadership. Yeah. How do you make the transition? I think, man, this is tough. You know, you're going to have some relationships that are pretty close that maybe are so friendly that it makes it more challenging. But I think you continue to maintain the openness of the relationships. I also think that you don't become you don't overcompensate. I think a lot of people tend to do that, like when they move into a new role, that they'll overcompensate and they'll start dictating and bossing and just turning into a jerk. So just make sure that you're still open, that you're still receptive, that you're still humble, that you're still learning from people who are, technically they're beneath you in a way, like they're I don't know they're just your team members, we'll call them. So continue to use their feedback and their input and get their engagement, keep them involved in the process, and then just transition slowly. Like, don't be so abrupt that all of a sudden it's like, whoa, who's this Ryan guy? Like, why is he behaving
let me change this, and I'm going to change this. And
right.
Because be frank, if you have that attitude, you're arrogant. You're arrogant and ignorant because you assume that your way is the right way without all the details. So
definitely
give it time to transition. Yeah.
And you undermine your authority, right? Because you could probably as a team leader get people to do what you tell them to, because that's their job. They have to. And there's a risk to them not doing it, which is losing their job. And I had a gentleman on the podcast, The Art of Coaching, Brett Bartholomew. He talks about the difference between, what term did he use? Compliance and commitment. So you can get people to be compliant, right? Because they have to follow you. They have to do what you say. But that isn't commitment. Commitment is another level. The way that you get commitment is by being open-minded, by being humble, by including them in the process, by being transparent on how things are going. I realize you can't share and disclose everything, but there's certain things that you should be able to share with them about how performance is and what metrics we're looking at and why we're doing things the way that we're doing. The more transparent you can be about it, the more open, the more success that you will have with those individuals. And ultimately, if you decide and make it about the team winning, not about you winning, because sometimes those can be at odds with each other. Hey, my job is to help you guys win, not to help me win. I try to do that in the Iron Council. I try not to elevate myself and place myself on pedestals I don't belong. Now, I realize I'm leading the organization. I realize that the direction and everything else is going the way that I want it to. I get that. You have to have a leader. Yeah. But I try to do it in a way and communicate that, guys, this is about you. I'm here to serve you. I am a servant leader, to use, I think that's Dave Ramsey's quote maybe, is I'm trying to serve you guys. So how do I do that most effectively? That's not by elevating myself as your boss, but by making myself at your service. I'm not going to say servant, but at your service. Yeah. That is my job. And that's your job as a team leader. Yeah. Your client service and your team member service.
Yeah. And when we interview guys that are interested in becoming a team leader within the Iron Council, that's, to be frank, and I'll tell this to them, that's the telltale sign if they're in the right mindset and if they'll be a good leader or not, is why they're there. Mm-hmm. What's the motive of being there? And what's interesting, and this is the book that I was telling you about maybe a few weeks ago, Motive. And one of the things I really liked
it's called Motive. Is that what you said?
It's called Motive. Okay. Yeah. And one of the things I liked within that book that it talked about is good leaders are motivated to serve and put the team first and see the progress of the team. Bad leaders are motivated to prop themselves up or how it benefits them. Mm-hmm. The reason why that is good and bad is because if you're motivated by how it benefits you, you will be unwilling to do the difficult things. But if you're motivated about the team winning, about serving the team, then you will have the difficult conversations. You will do the difficult things because that motivation is substantially stronger than you just propping yourself up. And that is what allows you to do those difficult things if your motives are accurate.
Yeah. Well, and ironically enough, maybe not even ironically, is the more that you serve your team, the more you'll be served.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you want?
It's a byproduct instead of a focus.
Right. So if I think about Order of Man and Iron Council and the Facebook group and everywhere that we're leading, I think, okay, well, what do I want? Like, granted, I want to help other people, right? Like, check, we got that.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about it realistically, pragmatically. Like, I've got to have some value from it too. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes people say, "Oh, aren't you just doing this out of the
quits?"
Yeah. People always say, not always, a bunch of people say, "Well, aren't you just doing this out of the goodness of your heart?" It's like, well, actually, yes, and also I like to make money, and they're not at odds with each other. It's okay. Yeah. So what do I want? Well, I want an income. I want a steady, comfortable income. I want to create experiences for my family. I want to be influential. I want to have impact. I want to know that the work that I'm doing is making an impact and making a difference in people's lives. Like, that's what I want. Selfishly, and that's okay. That's what I want. So then I have to ask myself, what's the best way to get that? Is it to push everybody else down and prop myself up where I don't belong artificially? Or is it to serve and to lift people up and to give them tools and to make them capable and equip them with the conversations and resources they need and to empower men to step up and lead in their families and their communities? Is that a better solution? Well, of course it is. Yeah. And if I do that, then those who would be empowered and equipped by what it is I'm doing are going to be served. And also they're going to remember that it was Ryan and his organization that did it. And now I'm compensated, whether it's financially or maybe it's some recognition or just a feeling of knowing that I did that. Right.
Yeah, it's the difference.
A sense of pride.
A purpose-driven life.
Right. Yeah. So they're not at odds with each other, right? Like your team's desires and your desires are not at odds with each other. They're complementary. And remember that. Remember that they're complementary. And the more that you can serve them, the better you're going to be served.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Peter, I already read Peter's question. Nathan Hensler, do you use beard oil? Or are you strictly, I use a motor oil to keep my beard awesome kind of guy? I thought it was funny.
I do use beard oil. Yes. Stay tuned on some beard oil announcements.
Cool.
And origin. I'll just leave that out there. I don't know if I should have said that second part, but just stay tuned.
Okay. There you go, guys. And how do you stay tuned? Wait, I hear silence. No one's replying. Say it out loud in your cars right now.
Yes. Subscribe to the podcast or Facebook or Iron Council or YouTube or wherever.
Got it. All right. Eric
Let's take
Page.
a couple more because we're winding down on time. And in fact, I'm doing a live. By the way, guys, well, you're going to be late on this, but
stay tuned. Get connected so you know about this next time.
Yes, we are going to start doing some more Facebook lives and doing some Zoom calls for the Iron Council and Order of Man, and also some Instagram lives. So make sure you're connected with us so you don't miss those things.
There you go. Okay. What question were we? Eric Page, what type of things do you do to connect with your daughter?
We do a lot of puzzles, actually. Like every morning, we actually do a puzzle. Every single morning.
Really? Every single morning.
Without fail. We have a table set up in the library, and her and I sit down and we do puzzles. We do Legos together. She invited me to a tea party the other day. Sometimes we just go on a drink run. You know, we just go and we just talk.
Get beer.
And she she loves Dolly Parton. Loves Dolly Parton.
Really?
Yes.
That's funny.
So I'll pull up Pandora or iTunes Music, and we'll put on Dolly Parton, and we'll rock out in the car as we go get a drink. We do a lot of different things. Some of them are like grand and elaborate, but most of the things that we do are very small and simple, and they're just done daily, and we just enjoy our time and company together.
I love it.
Yep.
That's great. All right. Claude Schmidt, do you guys have any plans to restock the Order of Man wallets? I need one, and he needs the Order of Man discount by showing his wallet to people. So
yes. So if you look at this right here, you can't really see it all that great. That's not my writing, by the way. Okay. If you can see it, it's not my writing.
I just judged you.
It's my son's writing.
Oh, okay.
And yesterday, because he manages the store. You guys know that.
Yeah.
So he does a really good job. So anyways, him and I went through yesterday.
That's inventory?
And we did inventory. Yep. And one of the things is on here. You can see it, right? Can you see it? Yep. 25. So we're going to order 25 wallets. Very, very small limited run, and just see how the second run does. If they do well, then we'll consider ordering more. So Those will probably be here in, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. There you go. Klaus. Yoda Samuel. Any tips for putting borders for toxic parents? I want to respect them, but I don't want to get hurt. The main problem is they don't acknowledge that they are harmful to me.
If they're harmful, then you just have to limit altogether. Like if it's truly harmful, you just have to limit it. You just don't go. Don't spend time with them. It's very simple. The boundaries are very simple, right? It's limiting time, limiting interaction, having rules that they understand. Like if there's certain conversations, for example, that tend to be contentious and a lot of animosity is brought up during those conversations, then maybe one of your rules is we don't talk about that. And if they refuse to adhere to your rule, it's your game, by the way. Like they don't get to make the rules. This is your game. Yeah. This is not just relationships with parents. This is relationships with a spouse or your children or coworkers or just people in general. This is your life is your game. Therefore, it is your rules. And if people decide that they're going to play within your rules, then welcome. You get to play my game. If you're not going to follow the rules, you don't get to play my game. That's how I look at relationships. It's like I have these rules established and they're not unreasonable, but I have these rules established. And if you play by the rules, then I embrace you and we enjoy our time together. If you don't play by my rules, you are not welcome and we do not spend time together. It's that simple. And by the way, like I think about our relationship, Kip, I have rules, right? And I haven't like communicated those rules to you, right? But because we're reasonable people, and you also have rules, and I need to adhere to your rules as well. Yeah. Because if I don't adhere to your rules, then you're not going to play the game, right? So we each have individual games, and we need to decide if our games overlap. And if they do, we have a relationship. If they don't, we don't, or we have limited interaction. So decide what your rules are. Like, what is it that pisses you off, or what is it that they do that you feel is harmful or disrespectful, and say this will not happen. And look, here's the thing. Like, let's say, Kip, you and I have our relationship, right? And you cross one of my rules or one of my boundaries, okay? And I don't even know what that would be. I can't even imagine what that would be. But let's just say you do, okay? I'm gonna communicate that to you. Hey, Kip, this is I won't be treated like that or talk to you like that, or hey, this is not acceptable. Yeah. And now you have a decision. Do you toe that line because you want to maintain the relationship? And if you do, great, problem solved. Or do you say, well, I don't care? In that case, game over.
That's a no-go in my rule book.
Exactly. So game over, right? So, but you're going to make sure that you communicate. Like, some things don't need to be said. Like, I haven't told you all of my rules for interaction because they're just kind of common sense. But if you happen to step over one of those rules, then it's my responsibility to tell you, hey, well, too far, Kip, too far. You still want to play under these rules? Cool. Here's how this is going to go. And then we can make our decisions from there.
Yeah. And we have to point out the opposite of this. What are you going to do? Appease everybody?
Right. Exactly.
You're going to run around and go, oh, whatever, Ryan. And people are going to walk over you. You're going to spend the rest of your life trying to make people happy. Really? That's not going to work.
No.
Right. And to be honest with you, sometimes I need to be communicated that rule. Right? If I overstep bounds, there's an opportunity for me to learn and grow from Ryan saying, hey, no, that's not going to fly. And this is why. That causes me to reflect a little bit and go, you know what? He's right. I shouldn't be doing that. I need to also adjust. It gives me the opportunity to consider that for myself.
Right. Well, and I'll give you an example. Like, let's just, because I think it's important we discuss this and then we'll kind of wrap things up for the day. But I'm trying to think about our relationship, our friendship, and then our business relationship as well. You know, there's things like I may have to, I can't be on a call, for example, or recording, and so I'll ask you, like I'll send a message and I'll say, hey, Kip, can you host the call this week, or can you record solo this week? And then you look at your schedule, right? And you say yes or no. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, yes. And they would change everything around, right? Like, oh, I can do that. And so they change everything around and then it comes at your expense. But you're actually really good at saying, oh, I can't this week because I have this call or I have this thing. And so I'm not able to do that. Look, that's not convenient for me, but it is something that I highly, highly respect because it means that your schedule and your time is important. And I have to respect that.
Yeah.
Not only do I have to honor it, but I respect the fact that you have a schedule and you honor your schedule.
Yeah. And what, not that you would do this, but some people, if you bend over backwards and you said, oh, I'm going to change my schedule, you start establishing a relationship by which that person, not probably consciously, will take advantage of it. They will say, oh, well, why aren't you dropping? And then they have this expectation that you should be dropping anything at any time whenever they ask.
Right.
That's also not very healthy for either.
For either of you. Yes. Yeah. Cool.
So well, don't do that to me.
Yeah. Well, just move your schedule around, then it won't be an issue.
All right. We'll wrap up, guys.
Yeah, let's wrap up.
Yeah, we mentioned this early on the podcast. You know what? This is a great time. We are virtual, 100%. Podcasts, YouTube videos, the Facebook group, the Iron Council. There is no reason for us not to be leveling up as men. Certainly for some of us where maybe we're not going into the office as much, or maybe we're not even working, right, due to the current state of things. And so take advantage of that time. Join us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/order of man, groups/order of
Holy
man.
cow. Start that part over again.
I started throwing in a / and then I was like, oh, he's gonna give me crap for the / Facebook.com/group/order of man / I'm just kidding. Same thing. Or join us in the Iron Council. This is a great opportunity for you to get virtually connected to like-minded men and get on the court. I love that analogy of often we're spectators when we watch the game of life, unfortunately. And being part of the Iron Council is getting out of the bleachers and joining the game. So to learn more about the Iron Council, that's orderofman.com/Iron Council.
Perfect. All right, guys, we're going to wrap things up. Had a great call, had a great discussion, answered a lot of good questions, answered some not so good questions. I'm just kidding. They were all good today. No, they were all pretty good today. They were all good. There was a few that I didn't quite understand.
I don't know that book, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. But that was still a good question. Yeah. Anyways, guys, keep the questions coming. Connect with us, like Kip said, because we're going to be doing a lot more live on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else. And that's it. So we'll be back, Friday for the Friday Field Notes. I already recorded it because I thought I was going to be out of town, but frankly, I can't remember what I recorded on. All the days are seeming to blend together.
Good.
But it's amazing. I know that.
Best one ever.
Ever. All right, guys. We'll see you on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.